Left of the box. I checked out another live stream earlier today by someone that goes by Boston Brian, who will be on my show on Tuesday evening. And for those of you who know what happens to Americans the first time they come on my show, you know. It should be a lot of fun. But I found it very interesting because the Vanguard was on with him. And he gets a lot of activity in his chat. And I tried to sort of keep up with it. There was a few names I recognize. But there was a lot of like age slander going on. Because the Vanguard guys, I guess, are young relative to a lot of Brian's audience. Here's the issue around when it comes to focusing on a person's age when it comes to this sort of thing. Yes, the older you get, the more experience you have. But I always find this issue where it's like some people are like, well, that person is too old. We can't listen to them anymore. You know, they're outdated and stuff. Oh, but these people are too young and naive and don't know anything about anything, so we can't listen to them either. So what exactly is the age range for, you know, somebody to be relevant? And the truth is, that's any age, because at any age, you know, there's people around that are affected by politics and they have different perspectives and stuff. Because, you know, I can't imagine what life is like for a Gen Zer now. Just growing up with the way social media is, with the way the economy is, versus, you know, older Gen Xers who grew up before the age of the internet, who have a different perspective because, you know, they didn't have to go through the same economic crisis. They could afford rent, that sort of thing. They could afford to go back to school. And just seeing how things have deteriorated since. Like, there's good perspectives on all ends. And the reality is you need all the perspectives. And, you know, I can't speak on behalf of a 22-year-old. I can't speak on behalf of a 55-year-old. Only they know their life experiences. I don't. And so I think it's important to never rule out people based on their age. You know, unless they're actually running for office and you can see the cognitive decline, then it's something different. That is something different. But then, like, also I find this interesting where you can go to like certain political events or something like that. And I remember I was watching an old clip of the Majority Report. And apparently there was like this podcaster who's like 10 years old going around to these political events. And they're all heaped with praise, you know, for getting involved so young. But if you're 22 and you're trying to talk about politics, well, you're just too young and you don't know anything. Like, it's just, there's no consistency. It's very, very odd. And I think it's very important that, you know, people actually not care so much about age. I'm not going to be able to see everything. I can't see the full picture. Nobody can. You know, we don't have enough brain cells. We don't have, you know, you have to live experiences in order to fully understand some experiences. Like, you can empathize all you want, but unless you've actually lived through certain situations, you never know how you particularly will deal with it. Because you can say to yourself, oh, this is how I would handle blank. But until you're in that situation, you have no idea how you'll react, how you'll feel. And so, like when I was unhoused, back when I was in my early 20s, that'd be very different if I were to be unhoused now. So do I dismiss something that a 22-year-old might say who's unhoused now because they're too young? It's important to have all the voices at the table. Because, you know, yes, as I will sometimes say especially when older people are like, oh, the youth are the future. And it's like, yes, the youth are the future, but right now we are their present. We have the ability to change now. And it's important that we do what we can when we can so that when the future does happen, they have less of a job to do, you know? Dao Han, I'm pretty sure I have not seen you in the sandbox before, so I'm just going to do this. Yes, not in my lifetime. Youth are the future is a great way to push off responsibility. Yeah. I do have issues a lot of the time when people say, like, listen to the youth are the future and stuff. I would also like to maybe try to educate some of the youth before they get up to certain ages, because there's some very, when it comes to the manosphere, the right-wing influencers and what they're doing to young Gen Z males, we need to get more involved. But it's just, why does it matter what your age is if you have something to contribute? Because you look at somebody like Sam Cedar, who's, 57 now? He's still very relevant in what he says, no doubt about it. And the thing is that he's old enough to have lived through experiences and stuff that a lot of people just can't comprehend. Like, he was on the roof of another building watching the towers come down at 9/11. And he was an adult when that happened. So he remembers life before 9/11 and after 9/11 and what the world was like at that point, which is a very important perspective to have, because a lot of people, especially younger people, they don't necessarily know that there's been other ways of living. That this surveillance state that we're in North America wasn't always the case. There was a time when Canadians could just cross the border when all you needed was a driver's license. You didn't need a passport. And if your parents were taking you and you were a kid, there was no issue, none whatsoever. Because it's not like the kids would have driver's licenses. But, to have that perspective is so important. And then he's seen a lot of the patterns, a lot of the cycles. So he's able to better analyze what's going on with certain things that he's seeing, especially in American politics, a lot of the politicians are the same players as has been for the past 40 years. But then younger people have a better idea as to, what the economy is actually like, because they're living through it right now. I caught a couple clips on Twitter about Hassan chatting with youth firefighters, youth as in, like, I guess early 20s, who were incarcerated. That's a very important perspective to have when you're covering certain topics and stuff. Because, what they face is very different than what other generations faced. And every generation has their struggles. And it's not a competition to see which generation had it the worst, because there's, pros and cons to every generation. And it's important that all of it is added to the mix when we're talking about this, because, politics, it affects everyone from every generation. It doesn't just affect one generation. It tends to have an effect on all generations. Like seniors right now, like here in Canada, the Liberals and the NDP were finally able to push through a milquetoast, means-tested dental care plan. But for the seniors here in Canada, that had life-altering effects for some of them. As in, they could finally go to the dentist and maybe get rid of that pain, get their teeth checked to make sure that they're not leading to other health conditions and stuff. So very, very important, all the way down to children who can actually go to childcare now because of a policy that they put through. Again, even though the Liberals like to brag about the $10 a day childcare there's always caveats and nuances. It's not as available as they like to pretend it is. Let's put it that way. And a lot of that has to do with the provinces, not so much the federal government.